Adam did this repent act for 130 years. I mean, this guy is pretty serious, right? You know, when most people, they go on a diet, right? So, yeah, I'm on a diet. Well, how long have you been? You know, you're expecting, you know, a couple of months. Oh yeah, 4 hours. I've been on a diet for the last 4 hours. 4 hours? What kind of diet is this? You know, like we're used today, everything real fast. Like, I don't understand. I've been on a diet for 4 hours. How come I haven't lost any weight over here? How come I don't look like I did 30 years ago? You know, everything's instant. We want fast food. You know, give us that McDonald's. Okay, so this is what Adam is doing for 130 years. And it says that he gave birth to a lot of troubled and evil souls. Now, this is very interesting because we just said that he separated from his wife for 130 years. So exactly how is he having these descendants? So that's the next question of the Gemara. The Gemara, Rabbi Rav Meir says the following. I don't understand. How could this be that he was having descendants, children? And he says the following. He was, the fact is that he sat for 130 years, he separated himself from his wife, and he fasted, and he put on these fig clothes, and he saw he had a mission of semen, of seed, during these 130 years, and from this, on a spiritual level, God took this seed and produced souls. Now, this is an interesting concept in Judaism. See, there are families that do not have children, but that's not correct. Because in the end of days, God will show us that a couple that was not able to have children, they really do have children. They were just sent through different families, kind of like, you know, foster family, and it's in their merit, which means that couples that had marital relations and were not able to have kids, that's not really so. They were able to have kids, but those kids were raised via other people who thought that it's their kids 100%. I mean, it is to some degree their kid, but the real parents are this couple that's not able to bring in children to the world. So, anyways, this is going on for 130 years, and there's all these people that are being created because of the fact that Adam, he was not married. He was married. He was not with his wife for 130 years, and therefore he spilled his seed, and therefore God takes this seed and he produces people out of this semen, and these are people that, once again, are shady characters. They're not like, you know, the nicest people that you would like to get to know. So we see that from the beginning of creation, this is a problem. For people to keep modest and to keep sexually pure is not an easy task, as we see right from the beginning. Anyways, according to the Arizal, aside for the fact that Adam spilled his seed, he sinned with his knowledge, with his dot. Why? Because if you think about it, there's a tremendous connection, of course, between a person's mind and thought and the sin we just mentioned. Because how does a person come to that kind of sin only through a thought process. A person, let's say, turns on his computer and looks at something. And he's looking, and he also is thinking about what he sees, and that causes many times a sexual reaction. So therefore, we have two blemishes here on Adam's side. We have a blemish of his mind, of his knowledge, and also a blemish of his a blemish in the sexual organ. What's the result of this? Folks, put on a seatbelt. The Arizal tells us the unbelievable following comments. This is the Arizal in the book. There are many books by the Arizal. This is the book of Shar HaPsukim, the gate of the verses, on page 101. 101 says the following: all these, from the 130 years that Adam was having these semen emissions, all this seed became creatures, became people. And what generation could they be found in? They were to be found in the generation of the flood, which is an amazing thing. Because we know that one of the major league sins that the generation of the flood created, if you remember, some years ago we had a 7-part series on homosexuality, the Jewish view. Anyways, we spoke at length about the fact that one of the major league sins at this time of the flood generation was the fact that they were having illegal sexual relations, which means that they were spilling their seed. And therefore, measure for measure, how does God blow them away? He blows them away with a flood. What's flood? Water. What is water similar to? It's similar to a male's seed. And it wasn't regular water. The Talmud tells us that it was boiling water that they drowned in, because of the fact that when a person transgresses sexual behavior, the person fires himself up, a person warms himself up. So therefore, measure for measure, they were punished with warm water. So, in other words, this is amazing. They are brought back. These creations that Adam is responsible for, they are brought in order to try to fix the sin of Adam, which is in the realm of sexual behavior. They've come to the world, and instead of fixing it, they make things worse. And therefore, they're punished. And the generation is destroyed. The next generation we see in the Bible is the generation of dispersion. Generation of dispersion. Here, very interesting. On one hand, the Arizal is telling us that they did not sin as far as sexual behavior. However, they did sin as far as their dat, as far as their intellect was concerned. Their knowledge, their chokhmah. Here they did sin. What was the sin? The sin was to join together, to become one people. Isn't that good? Unity. Depends, what are we uniting for? Are we uniting for good things, or are we uniting for bad things, which is really separation? So we know that the generation of dispersion, of the Tower of Babel, We know that their sin, interesting enough, we said that there were two types of sins that Adam had transgressed. One was sexual, and the other one is in his intellect. Okay, in order to bring himself to an immersion of semen, a person has to think about the subject, and therefore we are creating a situation where our mind is being used in the wrong fashion, because we're supposed to think about holy things, not profane things. So therefore it's interesting, as we will see later on, there is a direct connection between ideas, which could be very, very screwed up, and also a person's sexual life. If it's going in God's direction, God's path, the Torah light, or going against that, we will see a tremendous connection. So we have a generation that their problem was they were getting together, a union, but however for very bad things, in order to go against God. They were unified in fighting against God. So this generation, which is a reincarnation of Adam's first generation of creations that people that he created through the spilling of seed. The first round was the flood. Now the second round, trying to fix the damage that was done by Adam. So now this is the second strikeout. This generation is scattered throughout the world. Okay, try number 3. You know what they say, 3 strikes you're out. You might have thought that was invented by baseball, but it's actually from, it's actually from the Jews. So the third strike is in Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? Remember that place? Well, the people in that place are reincarnated from the generation of the flood, which were killed off, and they're brought back one more time. Take 2, as they say in Hollywood. They're brought back to the generation of dispersion, of the tower. They messed up, and they're reincarnated once again. They're brought back to the world and in the generation of Sodom and Gomorrah. What was the problem over there? Once again, if you remember, they surrounded the city. They surrounded the city where Lot was with his guests, and they wanted to have homosexual relations with Lot's guests, who happened to be, of course, angels, something that familiar with people that are listening to us today, how all of a sudden angels could be also dressed up as actual people. So, anyways, the Talmud tells us that there were a lot of problems in Sodom, but one of the major problems was the sexual behavior of the inhabitants, which was not according to the laws of God. So therefore, this generation, once again, was destroyed. So far, there have been 3 opportunities. Adam was given 3 opportunities he has descendants that are being reincarnated in order to fix what he did. And to understand this, Adam included the entire world. See, originally Adam was supposed to be just Israel, but after he sinned, he becomes all the 70 nations. So therefore, we're kind of all in the same barrel. There's all of a sudden, because of how we should have just had the people of Israel, the Jewish people, but that's not the way it worked out because of the fact that Adam and Eve sinned. So therefore, we have now, instead of just the Jewish people, the people of Israel, now we have 70 nations. And there's a need for the Jewish people to be scattered around the world in order to gather up these sparks of holiness and bring them back to where they belong, to the people of Israel. So the reason why the Talmud says that the Jews have been dispersed is because there are a lot of people that really belong to the Jewish nation, converts, who really belong with us, but they got lost on the way. And when they meet up with the Jewish people, they become interested, they ask questions, and if they're serious, so they're brought back to the fold and rectifying the sin of Adam. But that's for a whole different discussion here. Okay, so right now we're going to hold on what happens, what generation do these appear again? These souls and people trying to rectify Adam's sin, when do they appear again? Okay, but right now we're going to take a break. We said Adam and Eve, so we see that there's, with both figures, there were sexual transgressions that were made, both on Adam and Eve. Now, let's go forward and see a very interesting reincarnation of a scenario that will sound very familiar. Moving right forward to the portion of Vayishlach in the book of Genesis, we are told that the daughter of Jacob, Dinah, was raped by a guy named Shechem. Those of you that watched one of the Hanukkah series might remember that according to the Arizal explains that the nation, the Torah tells us that Shechem, who raped Dinah, was from the nation called the Chivi nation. Now, Chivi in Aramite means snake. So, very interesting. According to many commentaries, for example, I'm going to read now from the very holy book called Reshit Chochmah on page 249. We're in the Gate of Love, chapter 4, the beginning. So Reshit Chochmah brings down a list of commentaries that include this idea. What's the idea? When it says in the Torah, when it says that that Dinah was raped by this dude, a guy named Shechem, who's from the nation of Chivi, it's what happens here is a take-two scenario. Because Dinah, as we mentioned during Hanukkah, she is a reincarnation of Eve. So she's brought back, and who do we have now? Who is this Shechem guy? So Arizal comes by and tells us an amazing thing. This guy is the snake. What do you mean he's the snake? Okay, he's a guy that he defiled Dinah sexually. What are you talking about, a snake? We said that when it says a snake, this person Shechem was basically was Satan. He was the evil inclination. He was the angel of death, and he came one more time to try and defile sexually Dinah. This is a scenario taken out of the beginning of creation with Adam and Eve. And Eve was defiled when she got into a discussion with the Satan, with the snake. He deceived her. And once again, through deceit, Dinah falls. Now what's amazing here is, as we pointed out in the Hanukkah series, is that the Zohar Kadosh tells us that why did Jacob and why did the sons of Jacob in the city of Shechem, when they wanted to revenge what was done to their sister, why did they use deceitful fashions, manners? Why didn't they just, put the cards on the table and tell it like it is? No, the Zohar says, because everything in this world is measure for measure. Whatever you give out comes back your way, sir. Whatever you give out will come back. So therefore, there was a reason why that God wanted Jacob to take the blessings from Esav via the vehicle the means of being so-called deceitful. And there's a reason why that the sons of Jacob also used the same characteristic trait, deceit, in order to overcome the population and defeat the population of the city of Shechem, today what the Arabs call Nablus. So once again, we have a sexual defilement of Dinah, who is once again a reincarnation of Eve, and Shechem is one reincarnation of Satan. So we have like a repeat of the show here. Now, I'm going to bring down two sources here that explain the harsh reaction by the sons of Jacob. Why did they react so hard, right? If we remember the story was that they had an agreement that the males will have a circumcision, and then we'll become one people. We'll give our daughters to your sons, and you'll give our sons to your daughters, and your daughters to our daughter, whatever. They had an whole agreement worked out here. So they performed circumcision. They were weak on the third day, and then Shimon and Levi, they come and they blow away the entire city. Okay, why was there a need? Why didn't they just take out the perpetrators of the evil? It seems like the people that were responsible were Shechem and his father. So just take those two people out. Why do we have to destroy an entire city? According to many opinion, there were 24,000 people in the city of Shechem that were blown away by Jacob's and his family and whoever joined them. So listen to this. Our first source is called the book called Oznaim LaTorah. We're on page 250 on the portion of the week Vayishlach in Genesis, and he says the following. He asked that question, and the answer is the following. The last words when Jacob is upset with his sons, he said, "Don't you know I'm few in numbers, and the nations of the world will attack us?" What did the sons answer? They said, "Is our sister like a whore?" What kind of answer is that? What kind of answer is that? Jacob comes with a complaint that they are few in numbers, the Jacob family are few in numbers, and the nations surrounding are large in numbers. So they're going to blow us away, they're going to kill us. That was his complaint. What kind of answer is this? What, is our sister a prostitute? What kind of answer is that? Give them an answer, a security answer. What is that? What does that have to do with our sister being a prostitute, like a prostitute or not, treated like a prostitute? So he says the following. He says an unbelievable Torah here. He says what was happening here. What was happening here is that according to the sons of Jacob, they said, "Dad, this is not a private, one-time issue. This is not just something that, something bad that happened, a one-time issue. If we sit back quietly, if we don't destroy this place for defiling our sister, this will happen over and over and over again. Jewish women will be defiled over and over again in all communities. When people will hear, when they will read the stories in the Bible that the daughter of Israel, Dinah, was defiled by a guy named Shechem and nothing was done, or just two people paid the price. Where's the whole community? Why wasn't there demonstrations? Why didn't people complain, protest? So this will happen, that the Jewish women, not our sister, will be likened to a prostitute, that nobody cares what happens to her. No, they were saying that if we don't stand up to the plate right now and take vengeance, then we really will be destroyed by the nations of the world. So they were answering Jacob. Jacob said, listen, Jacob came up with a security reason why they shouldn't have done it. And they answered with security. If you want the Jewish people to be secured, then this is the way to do it, because people are going to be afraid to mess with us. And believe it or not, folks, it says in the verse, a couple of verses later, it says that God had placed fear of the people of Israel upon the hearts of the nations. Nobody attacked. Nobody attacked the Jewish nation. In fact, there are sources that 7 years later, the nations came to revenge what happened 7 years previously in the city of Shechem, what Shimon and Levi had done to the inhabitants there. But once again, they also lost. You know, so it's a beautiful, I can't believe people are just sitting here and not dancing in the streets. This was a security answer. If you want, you know what they say in sports, the best defense is an offense. That's the best defense. Now, this is not just a one-time source. This is also brought down by the Minchat Yitzchak in the portion of the week Vayishlach, Genesis. He brings this down on page 143. Yeah, it's Rav Yitzchak Weiss in his commentary on the Torah. He brings down exactly the same idea. He brings a proof. At the beginning, when this happened at the beginning, when word got out, you know, when Twitter came by, and people received notice that what had happened, that Dinah had been sexually defiled by Shechem, it says the words, why should they disgrace the daughter of Jacob? So it's kind of like a personal issue here. The Minchat Yitzchak, Rabbi Weiss, he's bringing down here at the beginning, it was looked upon by the sons of Jacob, it was looked upon as a private quarrel, private discrepancy issue. It wasn't looked at something national. So they were bothered by the fact that their father was being disgraced by what happened to his daughter. But then, at the end, they finally got it. They understood that, no, this is not a private problem here of the disgrace of Jacob or disgrace of a particular one girl named Dinah. No, they understood in the end. They say, Achotenu, our sisters. Our sisters. Now they're talking about all the Jewish women in the future. That if it's understood, if the Gentiles are allowed to believe and to hear and to understand that nothing will be done to perpetrators that defile Jewish women, that molest Jewish women, then this will continue to take place on a much, much greater scale. And listen these are the great words that he finishes off with. He says, this is a situation that returns in all generations. And just like then, when they were obligated to fight with all of their strength and with all of their sacrifice in order to keep the Jewish women safe and sound and not defiled, that is the battle in every single generation. You know, today you say something like that, there's organizations that try to save Jewish women from Arab villages and Arab men, etc. You know, you could be arrested today for that kind of activity, unfortunately, but not in the Torah. In the Torah world here, we see a totally different view of how it was looked upon. Okay, the last point for this week's class, and then we will continue. We have so once again, we started with Adam and Eve, and then they're reincarnated. We've moved forward. We went through 3 generations, the flood, Tower of Babel, the Sodom and Gomorrah, and now we're up to the rape of Dinah and Shechem, and the revenge that was perpetrated by the sons of Jacob because their sister was sexually defiled. So we continue to have this subject continuing of sexual problems as we go along. Next, we're moving up here. The next connection to what happens in the city of Shechem, as we know, is, of course, is the holiday of Hanukkah. And during this time, the daughter of Matityahu, which was one of the Jewish leaders who led the revolt, his daughter, her name was Yehudit, she befriended one of the leading Greek generals, and they were about to have relations together, and then she chopped off his head. Aside from this issue, we know that during this time there was a decree, either for 3 years or 50 years, that every Jewish woman that wanted to get married, first she would have to have, first she would be sexually abused by various government officials, various army officials. This was going on for either 3 years or 50 years. And at the time where another daughter of Matityahu, Chana was her name, as she was about to get married, so then she started rolling up her sleeve, which is not exactly modest behavior for a Jewish woman, and people got all, the leaders of the generation were at this party, this like engagement party, and they're getting all, you know, hot and ready to attack her, and then she says, time out on the court, you're very brave when it comes to attacking me because I'm rolling up my sleeve. But we're talking about sexual abuse that every Jewish bride has to go through, and this has been going on for a couple of years. How come you're not so zealous when it comes to this issue? They say, what do you want from us? We're a small amount of people. So you're a small amount of people? Look at, don't you remember what happened in Shechem? City of Shechem with Shimon and Levi? Look how many people they were, and they took out an entire city. This sparked the Jewish revolt at the time of Hanukkah. So once again, we have a direct connection. We have a direct connection with the city of Shechem, what happened there, and deceit, right? The sons of Jacob used deceitful manners in order to bring down the city. Why did they do that? Because we said Shechem was really not just a regular guy. He was Satan. He was the evil inclination. He was the angel of death, and he was brought to test Dinah, to try to bring her down. And he was successful. She was roaming around the city. He was successful in deceiving her, to being deceitful and bringing her down sexually. And therefore there was a need, measure for measure, to take them out deceitfully also, just like we mentioned for the first sin between Adam and Eve, the snake used the deceit manners. Now, the last part of Hanukkah is, after the military victory, it didn't stop at that. There's one other point here, which is a very important point. There was also the miracle of the oil. Now, this is very important, because oil represents separation. Separation between the Jewish people and the non-Jews. And therefore, that's really why there was no need to have that miracle. The victory in the war and sovereignty, that was a big enough miracle, to say the least. We didn't need the extra, oil miracle. Why did that happen? Because it represents something. It represents separation, because oil, if you put it in with any other liquid, it will always stay separate. And that's why, if you look in the Talmud, most decrees by the rabbis in the times of the Chashmonaim were decrees in keeping distance from the nations of the world, not assimilating with the nations of the world, which is the idea behind Hanukkah. So don't touch that dial. We will continue, and we will, God willing, we will connect all the dots together next time we meet with God's help. Till then, bye.